Part 1. The Trace That Waited 10 Years. The wall came. Part 1. The Trace That Waited 10 Years. The wall came down at 9:40 a.m. It was supposed to be a routine demolition, an old brick warehouse near the rail spur on the south edge of town, condemned years ago and forgotten just as thoroughly. When the excavator's bucket tore through the inner wall, a cavity opened like a mouth that had been sealed on purpose. Dust poured out. Then, something pale rolled onto the concrete floor. At first, the workers thought it was a mannequin. The foreman was the one who noticed the leather shoe beside it. Men's, carefully cleaned, still tied. By noon, the police had cordoned off the site. Inside the hidden space, they found partial skeletal remains wrapped in oil-stained canvas, a belt folded neatly, and a woman's scarf blue, with white stitching placed almost ceremonially on top. No wallet. No identification. Just order. Too much order. Detective Harold Crow would later say this was the moment the city's past finally asked to be remembered. 1958. Edwin Hale woke up every morning at 5:30 a.m., no matter the season. Habit, not discipline. The war had ended 13 years ago, but his body still lived by its rules. He shaved carefully, the razor rinsed after every stroke. His apartment was small, clean, and quiet. Too quiet, some might say. A single bedroom, a kitchen that smelled faintly of metal and coffee. No photographs on the walls. At the plant, Edwin was known as reliable, a mechanic's mechanic. He fixed machines other men gave up on. He spoke little, listened well, and never drank after work. People trusted men like that. No one noticed how he watched. It wasn't desire. Not exactly. It was attention-focused, intense, almost clinical. He noticed how people moved, how they filled space, how careless they were with their bodies and their lives. Especially women who talked too much. The first time it happened, Edwin did not plan to kill anyone. Her name was Ruth Miller. She worked at the diner near the plant, the one with the flickering neon sign. She complained constantly about customers, about her husband, about how the world owed her something it never delivered. That night, she followed him into the alley behind the diner. Not intentionally, just coincidence. Rain. A shortcut. She startled when she saw him stop. "Hey, sorry," she said, laughing nervously. Edwin turned. For a moment, he thought of walking away. Then she said something else, something sharp, dismissive, like she already knew him. He remembered the sound more than the motion. A dull crack, her body hitting the brick wall, the way she slid down slowly, as if sitting. He stood there for a long time. When he finally moved, it was with purpose. He wrapped her in a tarp from the back of his truck, cleaned the alley, took her somewhere no one would look, an unused storage space near the rail yard, a place he'd worked on years before. He folded her clothes, placed her shoes together. It felt important to do it right. For weeks afterward, Edwin expected panic, sirens, questions. Nothing came. Ruth Miller became a missing person for 3 days. Then, just another name that stopped appearing in conversation. That was when Edwin understood something fundamental. The city was full of empty spaces, and he knew how to use them. Part 2. Quiet disappearances. 1,961,963. Edwin Hale learned the value of patience. After Ruth Miller, he waited almost a year. Not out of fear, fear implied chaos, but out of observation. He wanted to know if the world would correct itself, if someone would come knocking, if a pattern would be noticed. Nothing happened. The plant expanded. New machines arrived. Old neighborhoods thinned as families moved to the suburbs. People vanished all the time for work, for love, for reasons no one asked about too closely. Edwin understood then that disappearance itself was not suspicious, only noise was. The second was a woman named Clara Jensen. She lived alone in a boarding house near the bus station. the kind of place people stayed when they were between lives. Edwin met her by accident, or what looked like accident, when her radio broke and the landlady sent for someone who knew machines. Clara watched him work with fascination, asked questions, stood too close. "You're very careful," she said. "That must mean something about you." The words lodged in his mind. When it was done, he followed her upstairs under the pretense of checking the wiring. The room was narrow. One bed, one window, no witnesses. This time, there was no struggle. He used a cord from the radio. Efficient, quiet. He felt no rush, only a calm certainty, like tightening a bolt to its final turn. He took her coat with him when he left. Gray wool, well made. It would matter later. Clara Jensen was reported missing by the landlady 2 weeks later. The police asked questions, checked the bus station, shrugged. Young women left town all the time. The third death came in 1962. Margaret O'Leary was married. That made it riskier. Edwin knew that, but it also made it cleaner. In a way, husbands were always the first suspects. He met her through chance again, or what passed for chance. A stalled car on a side road outside town. He fixed it in 10 minutes. She insisted on thanking him. Coffee, talk, complaints about her life, about being unseen. He drove her car into a drainage area under the pretense of testing it. When she protested, he struck her, once, hard. She never fully regained consciousness. This time, he buried her. He marked the spot carefully, memorizing the landmarks. He kept her scarf a pale green thing as proof, though he didn't yet know proof of what. Margaret O'Leary's husband was questioned for months. He drank. He shouted. He moved out of state. The case went cold. By the time the fourth death occurred, Edwin had refined his process. Selection, isolation, silence, removal. The city newspapers ran short items. Local woman missing. Police seek information. No headlines. No fear. Each story lived for a day and died quietly. What no one noticed, what no one thought to compare, were the absences themselves. Different women, different places, different circumstances, but always order. Folded clothes, personal items kept, not discarded. Bodies hidden where industry had already scarred the land, warehouses, rail yards, service tunnels. Edwin kept trophies not to remember the women, but to confirm himself. Each object proved the world could be controlled, reduced to manageable parts. By 1963, he had killed 3 people. And still, no one was looking for him. Not yet. Part 3. When the pieces align. 1966. 1969. The fourth killing should have been the last. Edwin Hale felt it even before it happened, a tightening in his chest, a warning that the careful balance he'd built was beginning to strain. The city was growing louder. Television brought the world into living rooms. Crime no longer stayed local. It echoed. But habits, once established, demanded completion. The fourth victim was Helen Carter, a divorcee in her early 40s who worked nights at a printing shop. Edwin met her because her presses broke down regularly, and management trusted him to fix anything mechanical. Helen smoked while he worked, asking personal questions with practiced indifference. "You ever get lonely?" she asked. Edwin didn't answer. When he struck her later that night in the shop's storage room, he felt something new, haste. He wrapped her body poorly, left behind a smear of oil on the concrete floor. He corrected the mistake within minutes, but the sense of imperfection lingered. He hid her remains beneath the floor of an abandoned warehouse scheduled for demolition. It seemed safe. He was wrong. The fifth disappearance changed everything. In March 1968, 17-year-old Laura Finch failed to come home from her part-time job at a department store. She was young, middle class. Her parents were vocal. Newspapers printed her photograph. Search parties formed. Edwin had not intended to kill her. Not at first. He offered her a ride when her bus didn't arrive. She hesitated. He insisted. When she panicked, he lost control. This time, the city noticed. Detective Harold Crow first saw the Finch file on a gray Monday morning. Something about it bothered him, not the girl, but the familiar emptiness in the report. No witnesses, no struggle. Just a person erased between two known points. Crow requested older missing persons files. Not many, just enough to compare. Patterns emerged slowly. Women, proximity to industrial areas, gaps of years, careful, almost respectful handling of personal belongings. By late 1968, the department quietly opened a task file. No press release, no serial killer headlines, just a name on a folder, multiple disappearances, possible link. The break came by accident. During a survey of condemned properties near the rail yard, a city inspector found a loose floorboard. Beneath it, fabric, bone, and a scarf blue with white stitching. Crow recognized it from a decade-old report. The warehouse demolition followed weeks later. Then the wall came down. For the first time in 10 years, the city had proof, not rumors, not absences, but remains. And something else, a pattern of concealment that pointed to someone who understood machinery, access, and time. Edwin read about the discovery in the evening paper. He folded it carefully and placed it in a drawer with the others. He understood then that the waiting was over. Part 4. The Hunt for the Mechanic. 1969. Once the remains were confirmed as human, the investigation changed tone. Detective Harold Crow requested every maintenance log, repair contract, and service schedule connected to the rail yard warehouses over the last 15 years. It was tedious work, the kind that broke younger men. Crow welcomed it. Patterns lived in paperwork. The remains told a story even science of the time could barely read. The bones showed no defensive fractures. The clothing had been cleaned, folded. Whoever did this was not frantic. He was methodical. Comfortable around industrial spaces. Comfortable with tools. Crow coined the nickname quietly, never to the press. The Mechanic. Lists were made. Men who worked alone. Men trusted with keys. Men who came and went without notice. Dozens became 15. 15 became 5. Edwin Hale was number 3. He did not stand out. That bothered Crow more than anything else. They began watching him from a distance. 2 plainclothes officers. No sirens. No pressure. Edwin went to work. Went home. Bought groceries. Fixed a neighbor's washing machine without being asked. Then he made a mistake. On a rainy Thursday night, Edwin drove past the old drainage site where Margaret O'Leary was buried. He told himself he only wanted to check erosion, that the ground might shift. He brought a shovel. A patrol car saw his headlights. Edwin froze when the officer approached. His explanation was calm, reasonable, and wrong in small ways. The officer noted the shovel, the gloves, the oil-stained tarp in the trunk. Crow was called. A warrant followed within hours. The excavation confirmed what instinct already had. Beneath the soil, remains. A green scarf. Fabric fibers matched those found at the warehouse. Edwin was arrested at dawn. The interrogation room was bare. No mirror, no coffee, just Crow and a tape recorder. Edwin did not ask for a lawyer. He answered questions precisely, as if correcting faulty machinery. He never denied the acts, only the word murder. They were already broken, he said. I just finished the process. When presented with the trophies, the coat, the scarves, the folded belts, he nodded once, as if satisfied the inventory was complete. 6 victims, 10 years. Total control. The case was airtight by the standards of the time. Physical evidence, confession, corroborating locations. The city finally had a face for its silence. And Edwin Hale finally had an audience. The trial date was set for early 1970. Part 5. The sentence: 1,970. The courtroom was full long before Edwin Hale was brought in. Reporters filled the back rows, their notebooks already open, hungry to translate quiet horror into print. The families of the victims sat together, not touching, bound only by shared absence. Edwin wore a plain black suit. His hands were steady. The prosecution did not dramatize. They didn't need to. Evidence spoke in the language of facts. Photographs of remains. Maintenance records placing Edwin at multiple sites. Fibers from clothing found in his apartment drawers. And the shovel retrieved from his trunk. Detective Crow testified for 3 hours. He spoke about patterns, about patience, about a man who understood the city's blind spots better than the city understood itself. The defense argued mental instability, war trauma, loneliness. They called a psychiatrist who described Edwin as emotionally impaired but cognitively intact. The jury listened, took notes, looked at the trophies laid out on the evidence table: scarves, belts, folded coats, objects stripped of meaning except as proof. Edwin declined to testify. When asked if he wished to make a statement, he stood slowly. "I fixed what no one else would touch," he said. "That is all." The jury deliberated for 6 hours. The verdict was unanimous. Guilty on 6 counts of first-degree murder. Under state law at the time, there was only one sentence: death. Edwin showed no reaction, no defiance, no relief. Execution was carried out 18 months later by electrocution. The warden would later note that Edwin walked to the chair without hesitation, as if reporting for work. The city moved on. Warehouses were demolished. Rail lines rusted. Files were archived and forgotten. But Detective Crow kept one thing on his desk for years: a photograph of the blue scarf, folded neatly. A reminder that evil does not announce itself. Sometimes it just blends in.